Welcome to Rebuilding LA After the Fires. I'm Jan Bresky, and in this podcast, I explore how Los Angeles recovers from the recent devastating wildfires. In each episode, I sit down with developers, community leaders, and other real estate professionals to uncover what it really takes to rebuild homes and neighborhoods. If you're looking to understand what's next for LA, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Well, welcome back. This is Jan Bresky. I'm really excited to interview Salvador Carbajal today. Salvador, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Salvador and I met through the real estate community, through friends, and we have had the pleasure of working with him on one of his development projects. He's also very active working with a number of other builders and developers, including in Altadena and Pacific Palisades. So we're going to be talking about the builder's side of this and what it's like to actually be an architect and a general contractor in those areas right now. So Salvador, first of all, give us a little background on you and your business.
Of course. So my business is a design build company. So it is ACC Design Group. That part of the business focus on doing the architectural plans all the way to RTI to get the project approved. Once that's ready, then we send it to the construction department or the builder side of it. And then, of course, we bid it out and start building the projects. So it's a full in-house design build. So we have the architects in-house and the GCs in-house as well. I'm a GC, so it's
wonderful. And tell our audience about how you got into this. What's the why of why you're doing this, and you're kind of a little more of your personal background, just a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, let's keep it simple. But since I was very young, I always liked architecture, buildings, and everything. So, maybe when I was 12, decided that's a path that I wanted to take. And I did. Then during the career, I figured out that, maybe I should incorporate construction into this. And apparently, the business of construction management, you get bigger projects to be involved. And that was the main reason I went through. Instead of working through architectural firm, I went to work through a big contractor company building high rises, mainly in downtown LA. Then once that COVID happened, people went for a break, make from work, and I decided to open my own firm. And that's pretty much a short story of how I ended up having both companies, because I have a background in the architectural department, and then I also went to school for construction management. So I ended up opening both companies.
So you worked on the big projects, so probably by comparison, the smaller projects are easier for you. And then I know you're located in Pasadena, so tell us about your exposure to rebuilding. And I think you're active in both Altadena and Pacific Palisades, but probably more projects in Altadena. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we have currently about 28 projects in the Altadena area. And in the Palisades, we also involved. We have about 8 projects in Altadena. Sorry.
And these are projects where you're acting as a design builder for a client who's building something, and typically they may be a home builder that purchased a lot as an investment, or they may be an owner occupant. Is that right?
That's an interesting question. So in the Altadena area, mainly developers, okay, who are our clients are mainly developers doing properties over there. In the Palisades, all of them are homeowners, actually. You made me think about it. So yeah.
Interesting. So one thing you're going to have a lot of exposure to is the process of getting approvals, the permits, and tell us a little bit about what that process has been like so far. How long have you been working on projects in these two areas? When did you start? And then what's it like? And give us a little compare and contrast between Altadena and Pacific Palisades.
Yeah, it's also a good question, because this is something that a lot of people have in mind. To give you an idea, for example, let's start with Altadena, okay, which is LA County. Okay, it's not a private city like City of LA. So Altadena, the process is quick as a like for like. For example, for those who doesn't know what is a like for like, or maybe that's a different question, But the process for like right now, it's about 2 months, more or less, maybe 2 months and a half. The idea is that planning will take 10 days to review the first plan check. And then after those 10 days, every review of corrections, it will take 5 days. So ideally,
Let's hold on a second. Sorry, Salvador, but let's define like for like. If
yeah,
I'm not mistaken, that means the existing footprint of the house plus 10% square footage at the most. And after that, it's no longer like for like. Can you just define that and let's come back to the previous question I asked?
yeah, sounds good. And then we come back because LA is different how they recognize a like for like. But in Altadena, like for like, that's exactly the same. You have the same footprint. Usually the city looks into the assessor's records, and then, back in the day, they have this footprint of what it used to be there. And you're only about 10% allowed to maybe change the original footprint, maybe a little bit, more than that, but not go crazy, on the like for like. Like, for example, if the building that burned was a square, and then you design a rectangle shape of building, that's okay because it's very similar shape. But then if you change it and decide to do a L-shaped building, even if it is inside the 10% of the square footage, LA County will be like, no, that's too big of a change. That's going to be a new build, and it's going to go through a full permitting process. And so like for like is keeping the same square footage, 10% increase on the footprint. That goes also for the height. It's 10% overall in the building. So respecting that will be a 10% or a like for like.
And
And
so
that's
what is the permitting process like if it is not like for like? How
uh,
long does that take, or is that still we're still figuring that out?
no, it will, like, we're doing a few of those. That's a full permitting process. So it goes through, it depends on where the lot is, but if in Altadena it's a big slope going out through the whole area. So automatically you need a topo, you need a land survey, you need soils reports, full architectural plans and everything. And it's not going to be an expedite process through that. So that's going to take maybe 8 months in LA County to get it approved for a
Got
new
it.
build.
And can in Altadena, and then let's switch back to Palisades and compare. In Altadena, is an ADU allowed as well as part of that rapid permitting process, or is an ADU considered no longer like for like?
As far as I know, okay, an ADU, if you do it together with a like for like, they will expedite it at the same time.
Okay, so it seems like people that own a lot could build back the same footprint or very similar footprint, plus up to 10% square feet, and even build a guest house, one guest house, and probably get through this rapid permitting process, which is about 2 months from when you submit. And of
Correct.
course, probably takes you a month or two to prepare the submittal as well once your client comes to you, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, between everyone involved, like the Title 24 report, the structural engineer, and us doing the architectural plans, that will take maybe 2 months. So it's 2 months from the day that we start, and then an extra 2 months from the county to approve it.
Okay. And so that's LA County, Altadena. Now let's talk about LA City, Pacific Palisades. What are the main differences?
For like, they're more flexible on the shape of the building. For example, there's, like, if we're going back to the example of, let's say it used to be before a square, and now you decide to do a L-shaped building, for example, and obviously keeping everything between the same square footage of the 10%. LA City, they're flexible on that department, and they most likely take it as a like for like. Also, something that they did right now to make it easy for everyone is not gonna coastal is not involved on it, so that's a big help.
Coastal is not involved
I mean,
at all in Pacific Palisades or very limited?
It's exempt.
It's exempt.
Yeah, it's waived.
Interesting.
Even for the new builds, coastal is waived as well.
That's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal. You're
That's
saving maybe
Mhm.
three months on review, if not more.
And yet it seems like there hasn't been a huge amount of permits issued and construction hasn't started on a huge number of properties in either location yet, in spite of the things that they're doing to try to expedite the rebuild, right? What would you say? What's your overall assessment of how the process is going versus what you would have expected 6 months ago?
Yeah, it's a good question as well. I was expecting to get a lot more praise from the Palisades, thinking that people wanted to rebuild fast, right? And what I'm getting from my clients are that they want to just max out the lots or have a whole new design. And maybe that's one of the questions why we haven't get permits, because that takes a lot more time. Even even that coastal is waived, you still have all the other departments that you had to go through. And obviously, since this is not a speed project, you have the clients going back and forward, changing the floor plan, changing the design, changing the materials, things like that. So that could be one uh, case scenario, for example. But another topic is like I do know that there has been a few permits as a like for like in the Palisades. I just don't know why they haven't started construction on those.
Mm-hmm. So it could take a family 6 months or a year just while they're figuring out what they want to do and deciding which contractor to use and things like that. And that could be one reason that it's going a little slowly. Um, so what would be your advice for other people that are considering buying a lot to develop as a for sale home or perhaps as a rental property or for homeowners for that matter? What would you be your top pieces of advice for them?
Yeah, I think a good piece of advice is to start with a good architecture firm, for example, who knows or who can distinguish what is a like for like and what is not a like for like. And the reason I'm saying is because I do have, previous clients in the past of friends who send me plans from both areas. And it's like, Salvador, I'm planning to do this. And I'm like, okay, perfect. Is this a like for like or a new build? And they may be like, no, I'm planning to do a like for like, and I see the design. I'm like, well, I just advise maybe your architect to take a look into the like for like regulation, so you don't waste time on going back and forward on something that is not a like for like. So a short answer, yeah, get a good designer or a good architectural firm to look into that. Equally important, you general contractor, just because I guess prices are all over the place, right? All over the spectrum, especially between Altadena and the Palisades. Palisades, you have prices between, I don't know, 500 to 1200 per square foot. So I can give you example of how much my firm charge, but it's just all over the spectrum at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So choosing a general contractor is very important, and choosing a good architect or a designer who knows what they're doing is, if speed is important for you, then that's something to consider.
I know that access is one of the challenges for rebuilding the Palisades. There's really one main road in, which is Sunset Boulevard. And how much of the cost difference in rebuilding the two areas is because of the availability of labor to get to the location and get access? Is that sort of $100 a square foot a difference, would you say, if you had to guesstimate, or something else? Because Altadena has many ways in, many exits from the 210 freeway,
Your
and
access.
it's much easier to get into.
Good question. I haven't really considered it that way, to be honest, in terms of getting access to the sites. I know there is traffic. Sometimes it's a big line together. It starts early from 6 to 8 or 9. There's still sometimes line to get in. Uh, but no, I don't think it really impacts that much the price per square foot uh, for building it, right? I think the
Mm-hmm.
main impact is yes, the Palisades is a higher end product, and that's where it comes down to the final price per square foot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is a challenge is that both LA City and LA County don't have a strong executive. They're both very distributed powers, and it's a city council or a board of supervisors. And if you were a strong executive over either or both of those zones, what would you say? What would you want to do to try to get the rebuilding going? What do you think are the top, maybe one or two things or three things that somebody needs to come in and solve for to eliminate the obstacles to rebuilding? Because we all want to see the rebuilding happen. Of course, we want it to be thoughtful. We want it to be respectful of the communities that were there before, but also we don't want to be so um, particular about every detail that it takes 30 years to get these communities back on their feet, right? So,
Right.
what would be your ideas if you were a strong executive in the city of LA or county of LA that could sort of wave a magic wand and make some changes or give approval to certain things?
Of course, because I mean, some of the problems that I see on the permitting process, for example, is the staff, meaning the plan checkers, they're not connected 100%. They have different point of view. So maybe having more flexibility or maybe hiring more people that get trained a little bit better to give about the same corrections. You could have the same project with two different plan checkers sometimes, and that creates a problem. That's one.
Say it again. People have they
You
deal
could
with two
have
different ones.
you could have the same project sometimes with two different plan checkers. So now is two different point of views, and it creates extra corrections. And sometimes it's just a back and forth with the city when at the very beginning it wasn't really a necessity to do so, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could save a lot of time. Or just simple hiring more staff in the city, right? Or, so to create. And then I think for new build something, I think they hopefully they do it in some point. I know LA already waived the coastal. That's a step going towards that direction. But I think we need a little more waves or something, or maybe another kind of expediting process for the new builds, because they could take a lot of time. If they give flexibility on the new builds, then maybe I can see a lot of people jumping into this to rebuild the lane.
Mm-hmm. We were talking internally earlier today about some of our borrowers in North Carolina, because our business started in Durham, North Carolina, versus borrowers that we have in Southern California. And we have new build homes in Durham, North Carolina that are completely built from when they clear the trees off the lot to certificate of occupancy in maybe 8 months. And in
Wow.
California, the norm is more like, I don't know, what do you think? From when
Depends.
you when you start construction to when you have a certificate of occupancy, what's typical? Because you've been doing this way before the fires, and maybe we should take a
Yes.
step back and just talk about building in California in general.
Of course, yeah. I mean, an average home, 2,000 square feet, for example, something like that in LA. If you're lucky, you get permits in 6 months, and then you build an extra, 8 months, for example. But that's a quick firm. I would say, sometimes it takes us up to 8 months to get just a permit. And this is just because the city, takes a long time on replying back with comments. But yeah, I mean, the process is criminal. Maybe they just request a lot of different reports and, everything that they ask, a third-party engineer that you hire, it takes extra 3 4 weeks to get it done, right? So yeah, I mean that the average is maybe like a year and a half, maybe to get a certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Mhm.
So basically twice as long as North Carolina.
Yeah, probably.
Um, so on that note, getting permits and being able to begin construction is so important, and there can be so much time lost before you even get to that. What would be a recommendation to people listening who are planning to do projects to avoid having an 8 month period if they are doing a new build, not like for like? What do they need to do? What are the things to pay attention to get through that process without unnecessary delays?
Yeah. Well, simple fix is like if you're looking into that, flat lats are a lot faster than any hillside lats. It just by itself, right? Then that's one. The other one, an experienced designer or an experienced architect, that's another step, right? Because if you get corrections and the print takes about 2 weeks to reply back to the city, then the process, is moving. So an experienced designer and architect, that's very important. The same with the structural engineer, right? Not over engineering is very important. So that's another big step. So it's just hiring carefully the people, that you decide to work with.
Well, and let's take a minute on that, because some people listening may not have been through this process before, especially if they're planning to rebuild their own home. What is the team who is on the team that is needed to rebuild a home or build a new home on your lot? You mentioned a structural engineer, there's an architect, there's a general contractor. You kind of wrap several of those functions into one, but can you just walk through what are the different functions that you wrap into one, and then what are the additional things that need to be on that team that are not part of what your firm would offer, just so people can visualize the team that's needed? Because I think there's a huge number of people who just haven't figured out what to do yet. They've moved somewhere else. They're dealing with their insurance company still, and
Right.
they haven't taken the first step. And so I like help them visualize what kind of a team they're going to need to do this.
Right. Well, if it is a like for like, then it's very simple, straightforward. You need the architect, okay? You need a structural engineer, the Title 24. Those three people, for example, companies, is enough for like at the beginning, right?
Say the third one: architect, structural engineer, and
The Title 24 engineer, you can say that, which is the energy calculations. It's something very simple to do. It's really not expensive, but it's part of the package that we have to have.
okay, I gotcha. And you package those three things together in your
Yeah,
firm?
usually I mean, we work with a third party in engineers, but we just put it all together and then we just work with them and do everything together in house.
Got
But
it.
so that's just a like for like, right? If you decide to do like a new build, for example, then it depends in the area. But now we're talking that maybe it's required to have MEP engineers, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers, and floor plans for that. So that's a whole different engineer group. And then maybe you need soils report and this, so new builds are a little bit more complex and it requires more. But usually the architect is the person who refers to those people as needed. And then the architect usually just kind of control everything with the city.
And then of course you need a general contractor as well.
Well, once that you get the permits, or actually right after you get the structural plans, that's when you should approach the general contractor to start getting the bid rolling. And the reason is because a real construction bid, it takes maybe like 3 weeks to complete, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to complete, the breakdown of everything. So, and then maybe things are going to change by the point that you get the certificate of the ready to issue plans to start building. But then, at that point, you have a 90% construction bid ready to go.
Let's just hit a couple more questions quickly, and then we're coming up on our 30-minute target. But what would you recommend for people to avoid having their general contractor come back with a project that it goes way over budget? Like what are the top one or two things that people can do, whether you're a developer or a homeowner that's rebuilding, to avoid very unpleasant surprises in terms of budget?
Like yeah, I mean, I heard stories of general contractors who just give you a very good price, and then you go for it because of the good price, and then somewhere between in the middle they start giving you a bunch of change of orders, right? And then so my recommendation is like a real construction company that should give you a bid, and the bid is maybe like 5 pages long with a breakdown of almost pretty much everything, from the flooring, from the doors, from windows, and that's how you know that you're dealing with a professional construction company. And then just look into the clashes and just simple ask questions like, what are the chances that I get a change of order on this? And change of orders, technically speaking, is unforeseen items, and that's it. So because you had the plans and you had the site, and for any reason, maybe you're excavating and you found something there that nobody knew about it. So that's a logical change of orders, right? But if you have the plans and they give you a change of orders because maybe they forgot to include a couple of windows or something like that, then maybe that's more like the general contractor responsibility to absorb
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, look into the bid is very important.
Okay. And then do you recommend that if a homeowner is rebuilding, that they might need a project manager in addition to the general contractor or not? In other words, someone that can be the owner's representative that can oversee the general contractor. Do you think that's worth it in some cases?
Well, if it's a good question, and it's maybe a tricky one, because if you're a homeowner and you're just doing one home, for example, and then you just hire a general contractor that you trust, maybe it's okay not having a supervisor to help you. But if you are maybe a small developer who wants to do 3 homes and you don't have a huge experience in construction or doing the architecture, then yeah, maybe have somebody who understands the project from zero, from A to C. Then it's maybe a great idea, because this person can help you to understand the process of everything, right?
Great. Well, Salvador, any final comments for the audience about things to consider? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I guess if they have further questions, I'm always available on the phone, so they can always just give me a call.
Of course.
I'm more than happy to answer any specific questions.
Yes, we're going to have your contact information in the notes. Salvador, it's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for having me. Okay.
Take care.
See you soon.
Thanks for listening to Rebuilding LA After the Fires. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend or neighbor who might benefit. Be sure to check the show notes for links and resources I mentioned today. And join me next time for more important insights into LA's rebuilding efforts.